All right, rationalizing denominators and then simplifying. So when I look at my first expression right here, I see that there is a radical in my denominator, and I am rationalizing this, meaning the square root has to disappear, by multiplying it by this denominator divided by itself. And why am I allowed to do this? Because this right here is just nothing else but 1. Like 3 divided by 3 or 8 divided by 8. And anything multiplied by 1 doesn't change anything. Now I'll go from there. The top multiplied out is 2 times the square roots of 3x. On the bottom I get the square roots of 3x times the square roots of 3x, which is the same thing as the square roots of 3x times 3x, which will give us the square roots of 9x squared. And this is a perfect square. That means the radical in the denominator disappears. And that is already it. If 2 and 3, they don't have any common factors, I cannot cancel out anything. That was it. Now, if I have 2 terms in my denominator, then I'm using something similar, not exactly the same. I'm remembering this part right here. A plus b times a minus b. This was a special product. This was the difference of 2 squares. So if any term in the denominator here, either the a or the b, was a square root, and I square it then afterwards, then the square root will disappear. Now, if everything is the same except for the sign, we call these ones conjugates of each other. So I will multiply this, just like in the first example, with some form of 1. The most common mistake is that students are doing this. They are multiplying it with the square roots of x minus 2 divided by itself. This is not going to be working because at that moment your signs inside there will be the same. So what I have to do is I have to choose the opposite sign of whatever sign you have down here. The square roots of x plus 2 is called the conjugant. Plus is the conjugate of negative. Negative is the conjugate of positive. So it's just the opposite sign of whatever your denominator has to begin with. Now, this down here, put it in parentheses. And now I'm just multiplying this out. In the numerator, 3 times the square roots of x plus 2. In the denominator now, I have this scenario right here. X, the square roots of x minus 2 times the square roots of x plus 2. And if I would multiply this out, I'm going to get the square roots of x squared minus 2 squared. This is the difference of 2 squares. If you would FOIL it out, then you would do it a little bit longer, but you would end up with the same result. I'm just using the shortcut here. Now I'll see what I get. I have 3 times the square roots of x plus 2 divided by the square roots of x squared. That's just x minus 4. Now I see that there is no factor on the top and on the bottom that they have in common. So I could multiply this 3 in. I use distributive property. 3 times the square roots of x is 3 times the square roots of x. 3 times 2, that will be 6. All divided by x minus 4. And We are done.